Hello and welcome to this session with Anandana Kapur. Anandana is an acclaimed filmmaker and also a media scholar. She has pursued her research in interactive nonfiction at MIT in USA and also as a fellow at the Indo-Canadian Shastri Institute in Toronto. She's the founder of something called Cinemat, which is a creative collective which tells uniquely Indian stories. She's also served as a jury member in a number of festivals such as Prix Italica and Italia and the Japan Prize, and has also curated a number of festivals. So for this festival, Anandana has created a project which is called eDevi. Now, I'm not going to tell you any more about it because she's going to talk to you about it in some detail. So, Anandana, over to you now.
Thank you so much, Suman and everybody at IFA. You've been not only very generous with your ideas and your support, but it's also very exciting to be part of this festival. So thank you. My project is not a single woman project. There have been many people who volunteered their time. So through the course of this little presentation, I'll also be talking about how we all work together and how the idea of eDevi is today a reality. Start my sort of screen share. Okay, here we go. So eDevi essentially is not just a goddess, she's also a signifier of the fact that our digital lives are kind of omnipresent. Even though we may be offline, there is something or the other which keeps us connected to the virtual. And also this notion of how we have all become cyborgs. There are legally recognized individuals who have implants and chips in their bodies. And this notion of how we are connected to our devices is no longer alien. It's who we've become. Our mobile phones are our prosthetics, and living a digital life is commonsensical to some people. But the fact of the matter is that it remains a distant reality for many, many others. So I think it was this incongruity that sort of drew me to this idea of the eDevi. And I think two important aspects which are particular to India, but also can be sort of applied to other countries. One is that the idea of the right to internet. Even though our highest court has declared it so, there is a huge participation gap because not only do people not have access to devices, digital infrastructure, there is very low digital literacy and media literacy. And even though we may have subscriptions, that does not necessarily translate into economic or psychological mobility. And so the participation gap is real. I have the phone, but can I look for information? Do I know what is the correct information, etc.? And then we are also a country which has so many rituals of faith, right? And of course, for the atheists in my team, these are rituals of superstition. But the fact is that they are part of our culture. And whether it is temples for e-visa and love marriages, or it is letters to jinns and Sufi shrines, or as you had told me, there is Angrezi Devi for learning English. Everybody has some sense of a figure which represents the mythology of what they want to be or what they would like to get. And so eDevi is kind of like the manifestation of these two ideas, that we acknowledge that there is the right to the internet, that there is a ritual of faith, but how can the two come together to help reduce disparity? And so the goddess of the internet is a techno-artistic ruse. And the idea is that for our work to be regarded also as a fundraiser call, a request for people to sort of donate anything from old devices to as little as just 25 rupees, because when a little adds up, it can go a long way. And in order to sort of undertake this project, I adopted what was the collective wisdom framework. I've previously worked on the idea of co-creation, where you work with people and decision-making is not undertaken by a single individual. And your vision also is moderated based on different people's perspectives. And the internet is pretty much like that. In its most idealized form, it is regarded as the public commons. On the other hand, it is also very elitist, very insular. Very few people can go beyond certain firewalls. So it became important to look at ideas which were beyond me, beyond my singular imaginary. When I started out, I knew I wanted to build a Devi, build a portal. I wanted to be tongue-in-cheek. And I wanted to see how old habits can transfer to the internet to make a positive change. But I think what helped was undertaking a lot of user surveys. I spoke to a lot of people and found out about how and why they might contribute to fundraisers online. And there was a core team of volunteers who worked on this project. And then we continued to consult with iteratively groups of artists, activists, people who had varied religious beliefs and internet habits to talk about whether they would engage with something like this. And so I think in some sense, this is a coming together of this mammoth team, people who have sort of put in many, many hours, all motivated by the fact that not only were we trying something interesting in terms of technology, but also in terms of storytelling for change. So, this on your screen is the list of the core team of people. We consulted and spoke to many more. And I think it's been quite an achievement in that. We've looked at artificial intelligence, extended reality, and augmented reality being a component of it in a very short span of time. And we constantly kept thinking of the low bandwidth user. So while there are other kinds of sophisticated Spark AR or Lens Studio kind of suites for augmented reality, we decided to go with WebXR, which would be lighter, which would probably compress a little bit of the texture. And I had this whole moment where in the 2D version, the Devi had many embellishments, but by the time she got to augmented reality, we had to be leaner and meaner and more practical. And in that sense, it's been interesting to see how to make art meet technology midway. And we also had a lot of fun, obviously, in the project. And as you can see over here, many breakfasts were burnt. But we must not forget that this project was incubated at a time when the pandemic was at its height. And even though we're speaking of the vaccine now, I think all of us working together and trying to look at the consequences of the pandemic on the lives of children and artisans became a huge motivating factor. And so burnt toasts became, hearts because of the fact that we were working and we were constantly collaborating and taking decisions as a collective rather than, as one person having one idea. And we decided that we would, go all out and not restrain ourselves. And we looked at various kinds of possible iterations of the Devi. And one was, of course, the human becoming cybernetic. So perhaps, we thought if somebody were to sort of transform while performing a dance into the cybernetic mode. We also asked ourselves that should this be like a Raja Ravi Verma moment for us, where we're trying to redefine how an existing pantheon of goddesses looks. But it seemed to feel like even though it would give us continuity, we would lose out on an opportunity to reinvent or recreate something which was of the now. So we looked at more options. And as you can see on the extreme right, we looked at just a millennial representing the goddess. What if it was somebody clad in jeans with a cup of coffee, or it could be, as you can see, more cyberpunk sci-fi kind of representations. And we were trying to play with RGB glitches, all of the vocabulary, the visual motifs of the virtual and the digital. And so several iterations went in, and then finally, we decided that we would go with this hybrid model, and a lot of thought went into which objects the Devi would hold, how much of her body would be just cords, how much of her body would look more cyborg and human-like. A lot of conversation went in, and I think each element that is there, as you will see, has been thought of in terms of what could talk about the digital divide, or could add a little humor or add a little magic to the experience. Because just this idea of this Devi popping out in your environment and her not being impressive would be quite an anticlimax. So at the same time, we needed to maintain that sense of wonder, that irrespective of whether it's a game to you or whether it is a darshan to you, that idea of awe remains. And if you were to ask me, how do you summarize this project? I think I owe this to my developer, Neeraj, who said, oh, I've crunched this out. This word cloud is what we did. And as you can see, we can go at the project from many angles. It's WebXR, it's augmented reality, it's machine learning, it's open AI, it's storytelling. It's certainly about bridging the digital divide. It's about computer vision. So in some sense, it's a complex project, but certainly not intimidating or inhibiting for the end user or for the makers. It's just that we enjoyed stitching together this very rich tapestry, which is at the back end of the web portal. And so, if I were to translate that word cloud into 3 specific tracks, I would say one was developing a virtual character, giving her a life and persona, which is why she has social media accounts, and she has an email ID, and you're encouraged to write to her and interact with her. Then there is the artificial intelligence backend. And I must say that when I started the project, I was circumspect because I didn't have the requisite skills, but I dreamt of the goddess having her own mind and consciousness. And I think really machine learning helped us stitch that together. And then, of course, augmented reality, which is bringing the darshan to you rather than you traveling, which is what the virtual is about, anytime, anywhere. And in India, there are, I think, thousands and thousands of web portals now which connect you to a temple or two. You don't have to go out, and your entire doshas are sort of made to disappear. So I thought that was quite fascinating that we have made this transition to delegating a certain kind of participatory ritual to the virtual, to the anonymous. And there are so many sites where people say puja will be performed for you, and you will be sent a 10 rupee prasadam. So it's essentially, there is no proof of whether this happened or it didn't. It's functioning on this very curious idea of faith. And I thought, why not use that same curious idea of faith and say, okay, we do pujas as well. So there's that whole bit of the Devi, where the Devi is not just this persona, but she has a temple, she has a ritual, she has a whole universe, and you are invited to participate. And of course, I do want to point out that this is not a desktop-based project. So anybody who's trying to access the project, please switch to your mobile phone, because we need the front and back cameras to have the augmented reality experience pop out in front of you. So if you were to go to the website and if you chose the mobile mode, you would get a welcome screen, which is the path to infinity begins here. If you choose to find out more about the project on the about page, you will find that there are details about the goddess. There are details about Glitch, and Glitch is a cat. Now, why a cat? Why? Because, we have this idea of how the Devi always has somebody from the cat family. They usually represent courage, or they represent resistance because they're tigers and panthers, etc. But in our case, it's a cat because it's the most uploaded animal online. Initial experiments with artificial intelligence involved drawings of cats, reproducing them. And cats are as indifferent as your internet connections can be. You can love them, you can cajole them, but if they walk away, right? So if it's not dialing up, it's not dialing up. So we just thought that it would be interesting to have the cat, and his name is Glitch. And so he pops in at different places and guides you through the user journey. Right now in the form of GIFs and little prompts. And on the about page, not only do you get to know about how the project was funded, who were the people who supported it, the team members, but we also go into a little bit of, the backstory of the Devi and Glitch. How did they come about? Who are they like? So as if to say it's the katha of the Devi, right? An e-katha, which you can read and interact with. And we also have the media literacy pledge. So this project is serious fun. So the idea was that just like we have initiation rituals and we have incantations and prayers when we invoke a deity, you would have to undertake a media literacy pledge, which if you actually practice in your real life, it would make a lot of positive difference to you, or if a child learned it. So it's fun. It involves 2 sections. One is essentially recitation, and the other is movement of your body, which sort of releases stress from your neck and your eyes. So it's our way of trying to sort of reconnect you with your body, while we encourage you to sort of connect with the Devi in the virtual world. If you were to go to our shop, you'd find that there are 4 sections. We have a temple shop in the good old tradition of e-commerce, and temples also selling you little tokens. So you can purchase a Mahadarshan, which is like a special feature. You can unlock some more augmented reality experiences in it. The experience is a little longer. There is special music for it. And you can also buy offerings. And, we've tried to sort of build this whole cosmology where you have eDevi mudra, you have gold coins, you have, various kinds of digital artifacts like hashtag flowers, which are from the virtual, but sort of connect with the physical, so to speak. So you could either go to the temple and explore more, or you could go to the other sections. But so that the user does not wander, we sort of try to make sure that in your user journey, you either enter the temple or you go to the shop and come back to the temple, interact, and then decide if you want to collect memorabilia. And so you will find that, whenever you have to take the pledge, Glitch is sort of nudging and constantly telling you to sort of take the bow, take the moment. And we have a little bit of like humor everywhere where we say, like, I studied a lot of these notices outside temples. I spent a lot of time researching. And so I thought it would be fun to sort of twist it and say, you do not need to remove your shoes, but you must take the ritual pledge, because most places say remove your shoes, don't come in. And the virtual cannot do that. It should not bar anybody. So there's a little play or a subversion of these kinds of things. The pledge is in 2 languages. For now in the experience, it's in English, because we will do an entire Hindi version, because I think that'll take more manpower, because we'll have to do it manually. We tried doing digital translations and they didn't quite catch the nuance. So I'll just say the Hindi pledge. It says, "Hey eDevi, हम ये प्रतिज्ञा लेते हैं कि बुद्धिमानी से क्लिक करेंगे, शेयर करने से पहले सोचेंगे, पोस्ट के स्रोत का खुलासा करेंगे, निजता के अधिकार की रक्षा करेंगे, विशेष रूप से बच्चों की, बिना सोचे या 10 तक गिनती करे टैग नहीं करेंगे, दूसरों के दृष्टिकोण को देखने की कोशिश करेंगे, नफरत नहीं संवाद चुनेंगे, ट्रोल या शर्मिंदा नहीं करेंगे, एप्स को कैमरे व मोबाइल का निरंतर प्रयोग नहीं देंगे, पलकें झपकाकर 20 सेकंड के लिए 20 फुट दूर देखकर, पहले दाएं फिर बाएं, ऊपर नीचे, कंधे एक बार आगे फिर पीछे, गहरी सांस 2 चुटकियां, 3 बार पलकें झपकाना, मुस्कुराना, कहना eDevi को नमन." So in the sense that there is this physicality that is invoked, there is a little bit of humor and performativity, and then you can sort of enter. And this entire experience is augmented reality based. So you have to give access to your camera, and we will obviously not be storing any data which we have disclosed, because if Devi stands for all things good, then she can't violate your privacy. So it made a little bit of the back end slightly complex for us, but it's worth it. And so this mask is currently being processed in 3D. So for now, you'll find that the pledge covers your eyes. And there are 2 sections, like I said. One is you have the text written, so you can just read and it highlights. And then you have these arrows which are animated, which tell you how to move your body. So there is a little bit of guidance through the process as well. And UI UX obviously have worked very hard to make it interesting. The temple of the Devi is not really a temple, it's a digital kavar. So it kind of opens and it opens another panel. So you see yourself like humankind represented doing different kinds of digital activities. And from there, you then move into an artificial intelligence prose poetry experience. So I like on your screens right now, the title is "Shoeboxes Are No Longer in Vogue." And then we have photographs which are mapped to this poetry. And these photos are not just from open source, but they've also been contributed by documentary photographers. Some are from my personal archives. So the idea is that the back end, that is the artificial intelligence, decides what will come together, what will be the text, and how that experience will be. So this is the Devi writing to you, telling you something. And at this time, I was also quite clear that the Devi would not be answering questions because she's not a digital assistant. And there is this whole discourse of how artificial intelligence is treated like we would treat an inferior race, in that sense of servitude, colonization, you answer me, it is extractive. And there is a criticism of that kind of approach. So we decided that the Devi would, in the grand old tradition of deciding to speak when she wants to, whatever she wants to, and nobody really sort of, using her as like a digital personal assistant. So we decided that you would interact with her poetry. And the prompts for the poetry were my adaptations of newspaper articles about the digital divide. I would write poetry by reading many, and then that would be the root script on the basis of which we would generate the AI consciousness poem. So on the left, you can see that there are some lines that were fed in, which were root lines from a poem that I wrote. And then, eDevi came up with her own interpretation and extension of the poem. And I really like the lines where she says that the future is written on a book that I once had. Like, what do we do with all this? Put it on the internet. And that's exactly what we're doing, right? Whatever we have, it's on the internet. It's a backup. It's a place for sharing, etc. So I think in that sense of how even artificial intelligence is recognizing the archival, the kind of almost absurd inflection of not living in the physical, but sort of pushing everything constantly into the digital. Um, and then, of course, you're always left with a question that you can think about or take an action, because Devi would like to leave you with this direction. So in this case, with the Shoeboxes poem, AI generated the question, can a pen, a book, a teacher change the world? And that's a great question if you're talking about books and memories. And if you get too lost, which will pop out in augmented reality and draw you back. So this was recorded in a park, just to show that, you know, that the darshan can happen literally anywhere. And as far as the Devi is concerned, you would then see one version of the Devi depending on what is the trending hashtag of the day, when we've focused on hashtags which are positive. So this is the Devi in her calm mode, where she is kind of meditating. And then we have a blissful version and an angry version. I would like us to take this moment to enjoy the music and to really think that if the Devi was before you, would you get a moment of calm? So I'll just play this track out. So, you know, she would levitate in front of you. And right now in this avatar, she's holding digital money. There's DNA because of biotechnology. In one hand, there's a cube of pixels because we all want higher and better resolution. In another hand, she has the hashtag flowers because she is currently calm and her logo is rotating underneath her like a lotus. In one hand, she always has a selfie camera because, you know, that's the register of this era, and she has virtual reality glasses, so you don't know where she's looking, but she could be looking at you, or she could be looking at your future or the past. And the wings essentially are sort of this comment on how um, you know, we are part human, part animal, in that sense also, that how do we know that being cybernetic is not being part animal? How do we define that? And it also adds to, I think, her presence. And so I suppose she's not riding the cat, she can fly herself, and that makes her independent. And so this is eDevi. Right now, you know, her hair seems normal, but it's actually, if you zoom in or when you see her in real life, you'll notice that it's bit code. So her hair are entirely bit code. She has like a Wi-Fi signal which changes depending on how your internet connection is and how things are around you. And this mode is the blissful mode, because in her hand she's holding meat, food. If your belly is not full, you can never be blissful. So, and I also, like, you know, I was just looking at the farmer protests, and you know, just thinking that in the initial days also we had Krishi Darshan, which is why we got like colored transmission in our country, so that the farmers could see greenery and the green revolution could be launched. Radio, site experiment, we're constantly targeting them. And then suddenly, you know, today we have a very different idea of who they are and what they can do. And I just kept thinking of how hunger is one thing that the digital cannot solve in that sense, unless and until we connect with it and use it. So she has like wheat in her hand. And then there is the angry version. So Which also gets angry. So this is just to kind of show that, you know, that the interaction can be in multiple ways with the cat and with her. Now, this is a representation of the back end and all the thought process and all the various kinds of machine learning pipeline behind everything that we have seen so far, which is we started with the pledge, it was augmented reality. We saw an artificial intelligence story, and we launched into augmented reality. And the Devi changes depending on the hashtag of the day. Um, you know, I think this is really interesting for me to map, because I will show you another map right after. But just to understand that we started off with a textual outline, which is what did the Devi represent? What were the emotions? What were the values that we were trying to give? And by value, I literally mean numerical points, which is in terms of, you know, what kind of words should the Devi persona largely be focusing on, because we didn't want, you know, trending bikini lines as the reason for why the Devi is behaving in a particular way, but more like hashtag social change or hashtag we need to interfere, we need to intervene, those kinds of provocations. So one was, of course, trying to do that. And then we used, you know, GPT-2, where we sort of used not just the fact that it's open AI and it has fed itself on, I think, over 8 million books, some 7,000 websites. And we also sort of, you know, lent our own tone to it by giving it more Sufi and Zen readings to do as well. And then, you know, literally character by character, we started generating the material. Then there was another algorithmic intervention where we were able to rank things in terms of priority, because AI is, as they say, a child. It can say what it wants, but how do we know what it's saying, and how do we sort of orient it in a way that it speaks of the cause that we want to talk of? At the same time, there is a backend where there is sentiment analysis, so that we know what kind of Devi to present. And then visual semantic reasoning. Each photograph was categorized, not just by the photographers who expressed what they saw in the photos, but by the developers and by AI. And so, you know, we sort of matched everything, and finally we curated the kind of experiences that you will see. And for each user, there will be a different story and a different poem. I just wanted to, yeah.
Sorry, I think we have to, because of constraints of time.
Sure. Absolutely. I just wanted to show this flowchart, which is a representation of what I just represented before, to show the difference in how art and tech think. This is such a linear, neatly made flowchart. And that's exactly how our project was. In mine, there were like these big arrows, and there was this sense of circularity. And here we have something which the developers have given me, which is, you know, simpler, and it flows in that sense. So this is kind of like an amalgamation of both kinds of approaches. And just to sort of take you towards the end of my presentation, when you go online, you can find pujas right down from successful love to getting better internet connections. There are some free features. You can fast, and these are digital detoxes. You can buy some digital art. But please remember that this is a project which is about fundraising. So we have a dedicated section called Donate. So you don't have to be a believer for you to come here and to identify the communities you want to support. We have 3 communities here. One which is supporting a village, 2 which are craft clusters, and you know, there are details which we have broken down. You can literally give as little as ₹10 to give more. And all of these photos are, you know, sourced from open source. They do not violate any privacy. And the manner in which the material is presented depends on each community partner and how they want to self-represent. So we tried to be as inclusive and representative as possible. So we have 2 artisan clusters and 1 village with children who need as little as just ₹325 for a mobile phone recharge. And it could make a difference. So in the end, all I'd like to say is that please get in touch if anybody has any ideas, any ways in which we can improve this. Reach out to people, and follow us on Twitter and Instagram if you want some interesting trivia. Write to us, and thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Anandana, for that really comprehensive kind of description of your project, the eDevi project. And I really, for people who have not already visited this website, I really urge you all to go and have a look at it. It's there. You can find the link to this project in our comment section. So, you know, I'm sure what you have just told us about this project will also guide them through all these different sections that you have there. So thank you. Thank you very much. And I'm sorry, I don't think we do have time for questions right now, but I guess people can write to you in case they have other queries.
Absolutely, absolutely. Well, we welcome all kinds of feedback and questions. Thank you so much, man.
Thank you so much.